Welcome to our February 2023 edition of This Month in Payroll. I'm Claire Soccio, a partner in PwC's Payroll Advisory practice. This episode marks our 50th edition of This Month in Payroll. When Rowan Getty started this project just over 4 years ago, we never expected the reception our monthly updates would get, and we thank you, our payroll audience, for being with us on this journey. We're proud to deliver unique perspectives and insights each month on the most important topics impacting payroll, and we hope to continue delivering you valuable information over the years to come. In this 50th edition, we will explore new legislation impacting gender pay gap reporting, the Fair Work Ombudsman's first legal action against a master franchisor, and changes to the shutdown arrangements in 78 modern awards. Now to our first topic. In early February, the government introduced legislation that from 2024 will enable the publication of gender pay gap information for employers with 100 or more workers. This move is consistent with a global trend towards increased pay transparency, with the OECD reporting in March 22 that half of the 38 OECD countries now mandate systematic, regular gender wage gap reporting by private sector employers. So what is the current gender pay gap in Australia? In December 2022, the Workplace Gender Equality Agency, or WGEA, released Australia's Gender Equality Scorecard with the results from the agency's employer census for 2021-22. The key findings included Australia's gender pay gap remained at 22.8%, which is stable with the prior year. 7 out of 10 employers and every industry have a pay gap that favours men. And women are paid, on average, $26,600 less than men per annum. The Workplace Gender Equality Amendment, closing the Gender Pay Gap Bill, will enable the WGEA to publish annual and quarterly gender pay gap information at an employer level. Currently, it aggregates that data and reports information only at an industry level. There are strong perspectives for and against the publication of sensitive pay data. The objective is that this increased transparency promotes accountability for workplace gender equality by encouraging employers to take action to close the gender pay gap. It's also intended to help investors make informed assessments of employers' pay equity performance. On the other side of the argument, some employers are concerned that the disclosures may impact morale and add complexity for organisations that already have to comply with different international reporting obligations. Regardless of where you sit, the introduction of the bill demonstrates how expectations around pay equity and transparency are rapidly shifting. The amendments don't impose additional reporting obligations per se on employers. Rather, they will continue to report the same information to the WGEA, and that information will then be published by the WGEA at an employer level. Since the data will be used to show an employer's performance and progress in achieving gender pay equality, employers should prepare now to ensure they're ready to collect and analyse the data that's needed to produce accurate reports in the format required by the WGEA. Employers should also draw insights from their own data to understand the existing gender pay gap, to explain the factors contributing to it, and to determine actions appropriate to address the gap. We expect that the topic of pay equity will maintain a high profile over the coming years, and business leaders will be more accountable for improving performance and fostering more equal workplaces. If you would like to hear more about this topic, please register for our Payroll Leaders Forum on 15 March 2023, where a panel of experts across our diversity and inclusion and payroll advisory teams will discuss the obligations and opportunities in more detail. The link to register for the forum is on your screen now. Now to a notable litigation development. This month, the Fair Work Ombudsman has commenced proceedings in the Federal Court, seeking to hold a master franchisor responsible for alleged wage underpayments, record keeping, and payslip contraventions by 8 of its franchisees. This is the first litigation of its kind since the Protecting Vulnerable Workers amendments were made to the Fair Work Act in 2017. And while it's important to note that this case is yet to be heard and decided, it presents an opportunity to revisit the obligations and potential exposure for master franchisors and also holding companies. Under the 2017 amendments, the accessorial liability provisions were expanded to allow certain franchisors with a significant degree of influence or control to be held legally responsible for the conduct of franchisees, if they knew or could reasonably be expected to have known that a contravention would or was likely to happen, or hadn't taken reasonable steps to prevent the contravention. Similar liabilities apply to holding companies in respect of their subsidiaries within a corporate group structure. Potential protection for holding companies and franchisors lies in that second limb, taking reasonable steps to prevent the contravention. In considering whether reasonable steps were taken by a holding company or master franchisor, the court may consider factors such as its size and available resources, the extent of influence or control over the subsidiaries or franchisees, the steps taken to educate the subsidiaries or franchisees about payroll and workplace law obligations and to support their compliance, processes in place to monitor and assess compliance with the relevant laws, arrangements to receive and address employees' questions or complaints about pay or other workplace entitlements, and any contractual or other formal obligations requiring the subsidiary or franchisee to comply with workplace obligations. If found responsible, the penalties are considerable. Courts can order the responsible franchisor entity or holding company to pay any underpayments owed, which might include wages, super, leave, and expense reimbursements, and also penalties for each breach up to $16,500 for an individual and $82,500 for a company, or 10 times these amounts if a serious contravention has occurred. This legal action serves as a reminder to assess whether necessary systems for compliance, record keeping, and payslip reporting are in place across all elements of the supply chain. We will continue to monitor the progress of the case referred to and provide a further update once it has been decided. Now to an update about new modern award terms. Many awards contain a shutdown or close down clause that enables an employer to direct employees to take a period of annual leave where the employer shuts down all or part of its business. As part of the Fair Work Commission's 4-year review of modern awards, the Commission has replaced the existing clauses in 78 modern awards with a new model term. The driver for the change was concern that employers could previously direct an employee to take unpaid leave if that employee hadn't accrued enough paid annual leave to cover the shutdown period. Under the new model term, which will become effective from 1 May 2023, employers can shut down part or all of a business for a particular period and ask employees to take paid annual leave, providing that direction is reasonable. However, employers can no longer direct an employee to take leave without pay during the shutdown period. If an employee hasn't accrued enough paid leave to cover the shutdown period, the employer and employee can agree in writing to take unpaid leave or paid annual leave in advance. And employers must provide at least 28 days written notice of the temporary shutdown period. Before these new terms are introduced in May, employers impacted by the changes need to update relevant procedures, guidelines, and documentation relating to annual shutdowns. This should include preparing templates for the written notice and for agreements between employees and employers about the taking of unpaid leave or paid annual leave in advance. Employers should also consider whether additional training is needed for site leaders and HR reps to ensure awareness of these changes and appropriate communication with employees. And payroll processes and documentation should be updated, and testing of the payroll system capability to accommodate paid leave in advance. And finally, a couple of brief tactical updates, including changes to the payslip reporting of paid family and domestic violence leave. As mentioned last month, regulations supporting the new paid FDV leave type initially required the leave to be recorded as leave other, special leave, or miscellaneous leave on payslips. Recognising the importance of protecting eligible employees' confidentiality, it's already been acknowledged that reporting some form of leave having been taken could create a risk to employees. The regulators therefore moved quickly to revise the reporting requirements, and effective 4 February, an amount paid to an employee for taking paid FDV leave has to now be recorded on a payslip and STP2 reports as ordinary hours of work, or another kind of payment for performing work, such as an allowance, bonus, or overtime, unless the employee themselves specifically asks their employer to record the FDV leave as a leave type. There is a transitional period in place until the 4th of June to allow employers time to update their payroll systems. During this time, paid FDV leave can still be recorded on a payslip as another type of leave. And lastly, a reminder about STP deferrals. As at early February, an estimated 350,000 employers were reporting data for over 7 million employees in a live single-touch payroll Phase 2 environment. A number of larger payroll digital service providers, or DSPs, received ATO deferrals for a delayed transition to STP2 reporting, which will expire in March 2023. Employers that have been covered by the March DSP deferrals will be required to start STP2 reporting of disaggregated payroll data from 1 April 2023, or a later date if the employer has received its own further deferral. Remembering that it takes a significant amount of time to implement and test STP2 processes and to rectify any issues, we recommend that employers due to go live as at 1 April perform robust testing across 3 key areas. Firstly, a review of all active pay code mapping and configuration to ensure Fair Work, tax, and superannuation obligations are being met. Secondly, a review of the pay code categorization for STP2 reporting purposes. And finally, an assessment of the ability to access non-payroll data that is needed for STP2 purposes. If you have any questions or need help to seek a further deferral from the ATO, please contact your usual PwC Workforce team member or me on the details below. And that's it for this month in payroll for February 2023. If you would like to revisit any of our prior updates, they're available on our website at pwc.com.au/payroll. Until next time, have a great month in payroll.